just a little blurb about the background of the Seeker's Compass and what we're doing. We're part of All Faith Seminary International, which offers programs that help people to connect deeper with the divine. And we explore in our mystical path, in particular, we look at Christian mysticism, Sufism, A Course in Miracles, Zen, Vedanta, Kabbalah, nature mysticism, yoga, Sikhism, and more. And it's a process that allows people look through the lens of, gee, what have all the ancient mystics done? And what are the modern mystics doing? And how do we deepen our own practice, whatever that is? And it begins with you asking that interesting question. And we do have these paths that take us deeper and deeper into the program. And we've got some students right here with us today who are involved in the program. And we are really happy to see all of you join us. And these are open to the public as well as, of course, for our students. And today, the Seeker's Compass is part of that, where we get to talk to folks who are on all these different paths. And what we find is such fascinating insight. They all start to say the same thing at the upper edges of the mystical path as they all get closer and closer to the divine, as one way of thinking of it. They all start to say the same thing. And it's a beautiful, beautiful message that we hear over and over and over again. And our agenda for today, we're going to start right now. Of course, we're doing our welcome and introduction. We'll have a centering meditation in just a moment with Dr. Keith, and Gayathri will go into her journey into this wonderful view of the divine feminine. I'm really, really interested to see what that is all about and hear that. We'll have a wonderful conversation with her, and we've got our questions that we ask our mystics as well, and we'll be available for questions from you. And hopefully you'll find something in this today that allows you to go a little bit deeper on your own path or add something that is meaningful for you on your path back to the divine feminine. And with that, I would like to ask Dr. Lowenstein to come forward and share the meditation for the morning. Keith, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. So I'd like to invite everybody to engage in a brief meditation with us this morning. And, our topic of the day is the divine feminine. And so we will focus a little bit on the Mother Nature aspect of her in our meditation today. So if you can just settle in, I'd like you to try and sit straight and on a firm surface. If you're on a soft chair, maybe move a little forward so that your sit bones, the bony parts of your pelvis, kind of hit something hard, so your spine can kind of rise up out of that. And we'd like to think about connecting with our sit bones into our chair or floor, down into the building, to the foundation, and to the ground below, as Mother Nature, as we experience her through our beautiful planet, flying us through the cosmos. So beginning there, let's now take a nice deep breath and settle in. And as you breathe, I would like you to begin to breathe into your pelvic bowl and really connect further into Mother Nature as we experience her in the world around us. Feeling that support and connection. So please gently come back to the room. Very nice. Well, welcome, everybody. So today we have the wonderful treat of having Gayathri present to us on the Divine Feminine. So all relationships begin somewhere down the road with connections, and my connection with Gayatri goes back about a decade or more. And my own research kind of connected me to her lineage and Scott, who'd ended up living down the road from me. So we've gotten to know each other over time. Gayatri's journey began at a very young age. She met her teacher, Guru Nitya, when she was 11, and she's been a lifelong student and has studied the Vedanta, the Yoga Sutras, the Gita, Buddhist schools of philosophy, and the focus of today is a writing by Adi Shankaracharya. It's a mystical composition extolling the divine feminine, or Shakti, referred to as the Saundarya Lahari. And Gayatri's own masterful teaching of mindfulness meditation is very beautiful. I myself have attended some of her classes and can speak about her expertise and ability to lead a group and the beautiful philosophy she brings to it. And so with that introduction, I think I'm going to turn it over to Gayatri, who is blessing us with her presence today. It's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Keith and Bud, and all of you for being here this morning, for showing up on a Sunday morning. We were talking briefly before we started the session about all the goings on in the world today, and many people are truly afraid and scared with all the what feels like a very chaotic time, and so many sources of news that just really get us down. And I think groups like these that gather in the name of truth and justice, love, knowledge, they give me a lot of hope. And like I say, we may not make the news, but there are many such groups, satsangs, people who gather in the name of truth. And that gives me a lot of hope. And so thank you all so much for being here today and for listening. What I'll do is I'd like to start with a chant. It's just an invocation to Lord Ganesha. And Ganesha is he's the one that we invoke at the beginning of anything, when we start something. He's said to be the remover of obstacles. So it's a little chant that invokes Ganesha and the Guru principle, the light, the guiding light within each of us. So that's the chant. And then I'll follow that with another brief chant which invokes the goddess Tripura Sundari, who is the deity of the Saundarya Lahari, which I will be speaking about. So I'll just begin with some brief chanting, and you can just close your eyes and listen, and then we'll begin. Om Hari Shri Ganapataye Namaha. Avignamastu Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Hari Shri Ganapataye Namaha. Avignamastu Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Hari Shri Ganapataye Namaha. Avignamastu Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Shri Mahatripura Sundarye Namaha. Om Shri Mahatripura Sundarye Namaha. Om Shri Mahatripura Sundarye Namaha. So, Keith gave a brief introduction. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself, and then just to introduce my journey a little bit, and then we'll get into the topic of today. So I actually live here in Palo Alto with my husband, who is also here today, my beloved husband Costa, who's in this gathering today. And we have two children. Both are in college. And I grew up in India and came to the United States when I was 22 for my graduate studies in information systems at the University of Southern California. So that was back in 1992. And actually 93 is when I came here. And then I got my master's in information systems, and I worked in healthcare technology for about 15 years before I switched to what I'm doing now, which is mostly studying and sharing my guru's teachings, and also teaching mindfulness meditation with individuals and groups, ranging from tweens and teens to seniors. I teach at 2 senior living communities. I have my own little group that meets every morning. So that's been my work for the past, I would say, about 10 years. And but my spiritual roots lie in Advaita Vedanta, non-dualism. And my guru, Nitya Chaitanya Yati, who you might, some of you might have already heard about him through Scott, who's also here. I just love it that Scott and Nancy, they're all my gurus, people who've guided me and mentored me over the past several years. And it's just so nice that they're all here today to be here in this session today. So I have a lot of gratitude for all the teachers of my life, and of course my Guru Nitya Chaitanya Yati. So I met him when I was about 11 years old in my grandfather's house. And you could say that he, planted the Dharma seeds in me, that very first meeting. And I guess, as they say, the arrow was struck, and then, then from that time on, the path has unfolded in its own mysterious way. And of course, I didn't know at the time when I met him who he really was and what he really, represented, as a guru. I just saw him really as a grandpa, and I just related to him like a granddaughter to a grandpa, and he also treated me that way. He would tell me stories, and very, very sweet, loving relationship in those early years when I met him. He would come to our house in Bangalore when he visited. And it was later, in my teens and tweens that I started, I would say teens, in my early 20s, I would say, that I started to really see that he had something, that he had a particular quality of being, a way of being that I myself wanted for myself. He had this sort of a freedom of being, an unconditional love for everyone that he came into contact with, a deep wisdom and knowledge of ancient texts, and a universal vision. Like, he just had this sort of all-inclusive way in which he met everybody, and from different parts of the world, and a deep compassion for the suffering of human beings. And I think those qualities that I saw in him, I said, well, I want that. I said, well, he's got some secret that I want to know more about, right? So I think that's when I started to become more curious about what he was teaching. So I started reading a little bit more about the things that he was teaching. I went and stayed in the Gurukula with him for 3 weeks when I was in my early 20s, and that really shifted a lot of things for me in my life and the way I started to see things. And then, Guru Nitya passed away in 1999, and it was always, I grieved that a lot, because that was the time, when I was really wanting to get deeper into these teachings, and I was like, what kind of timing is this, Guru? How could you go at this time, like when I really need you and I want you here, to guide me and teach me. And so I felt this really deep loss, and I was really I really grieved his loss for a long time. And but I continued to study and learn, through Nancy's online groups, and I started studying the Bhagavad Gita and the Atmopadesha Satakam, some of the Upanishads, and I started, exploring yoga and yogic practices. And really what I started to understand is something that Guru Nitya spoke about often. And he used to say the Guru is not a person or a personality, but it's the principle, it's a guiding principle, it's the absolute that is in every human heart. And then I started to really see that and experience that, the Guru principle in my life. And I felt, I could access his presence anytime, anywhere, and I feel his presence now as I'm sitting here. And that principle has guided me through, to different teachers, teachings, practices. And I started exploring Buddhist teachings. I go on retreats regularly, and so I've studied with some wonderful Buddhist teachers, and then I got certified to become a mindfulness meditation teacher through UC Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center, and with teachers like Jack Kornfield and Tara Brach, who some of you might be familiar with. And so those trainings have helped me share these teachings and practices with in secular settings, with different groups of people. So that's become my work. And of course, I share my Guru's teachings. I have 2 separate groups, one that's studying Atmopadesha Satakam, which is Narayana Guru's composition. So I have one group where we're exploring that text, and then I have another group where we're exploring Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So that's a little bit about some of the work that I do, and it's really become a journey of really finding myself and becoming more who I really am. And so it's been a really wonderful journey, and my Guru's with me every step of the way. So so it's been really wonderful. So I have a few slides that I want to share about today's topic. So the Saundarya Lahari, I know for some of you that might be a mouthful. It's a composition by Adi Shankaracarya. He was a great mystic, sage, seer, philosopher, scholar, commentator, poet, guru. He's really revered as being sort of that's why they say Adi, because he's like the first guru in that particular lineage, which is continuing even now. And so he's an 8th century sage, And they say he died at the age of 32, which I find almost impossible to believe because he was so prolific. And in those 32 years, he commented. He had some great commentaries on the Upanishads, on the Brahma Sutras, on the Vedas. He was a very sharp, incisive kind of a teacher. And he's his works, I don't know, called the Viveka Chudamani that he wrote. So he had written and commented on all these Advaitic texts, and the Saundarya Lahari is a very sort of very unlike all the rest of his works, because most of his were like really sort of commentaries and explanations and lists and concepts, and those were the way. I mean, his previous works were all of that flavor, and the Saundarya Lahari is like a very, very ecstatic devotional poem, and very sort of with a lot of tantric elements embedded in it. And so it was very unlike a lot of his other writings and works. And so some people actually question that he even wrote the Saundarya Lahari. They say that it couldn't have been Sankaracarya who wrote the Saundarya Lahari. But Nataraja Guru, who is my guru's guru, so my guru is Guru Nitya Chaitanya Yati, and his guru is Nataraja Guru, who wrote a very seminal and groundbreaking commentary on the Saundarya Lahari. And Nataraja Guru's commentary is pretty, I mean, I haven't even really had the courage to go into it because he's done such a very thorough, in-depth meditation on this work. And then Nataraja Guru's guru is Narayana Guru. So that's the lineage that I come from. But Nataraja Guru, he disagrees. He thinks that this was definitely Adi Shankaracharya's work. Because if you explore each verse of the Saundarya Lahari in Advaitic terms, in non-dualistic terms, it makes complete sense that Adi Shankaracharya would have written this. And it was his way of basically combining and integrating a lot of the schools of philosophy and thought that existed during his time. Which was yoga, tantra, Advaita, the Shakta traditions, all of that. This Saundarya Lahari is a sort of a integration or a unification of all of those different schools of philosophy that existed during Shankara's time, and Nataraja Guru's commentary looks at the entire Saundarya Lahari in those non-dualistic terms, in Advaita, in terms of Advaita, which is very unique actually. So that's just a little bit about the person who wrote this work, and it has a very devotional tone. It's very, very the poetry. It's such rich and beautiful poetry. And I'll give you a taste of a few verses of this work in today's session. But the deity that is praised in this work is Tripura Sundari, the goddess Tripura Sundari. And Tripura Sundari means the beautifier of the three worlds, the three cities, you could say. Pura means city, but you could translate it to three worlds. And what are the three worlds? So Guru Nitya says that the way he's interpreted the three worlds is the world of the cosmos, which is everything of the manifested world, of the stars and galaxies and the planets and the trees and the mountains and the rivers. It's everything of the external manifested world. That's the first world. And then the second world is our world of relationships and society and laws and politics and relationships that we have in our social experience of relating with each other in this world. So that's the second world. And then the third world is our inner world of the psyche, the mind, and our inner experience of ourselves as separate beings with thoughts and feelings. So that's the world of the psyche. So, I mean, of course, we can elaborate on each of these, but this is just sort of a brief description of these three worlds. And so she presides over all these three worlds, this Tripura Sundari and this goddess, and she beautifies all of them. And of course, when we think of this, and we were just talking, we're saying, how could we think of all these ugly wars and racism and all of that, and how could we see that as beauty? How can we approach it in that sense, right? So, and the goddess, what she represents is the creative intelligence of this universe. And as Bud was saying, we don't know the causes and conditions and all the webs that are feeding into each moment, right? It's a vast, infinite, field of causes and effects that are impacting every moment of our existence. And she, the creatress, the mother, is the intelligence, the driver of all of that. And sometimes she comes in the form of what Ram Dass calls fierce grace. When Ram Dass, I don't know if some of you, I'm sure, know Ram Dass, when he got his stroke, and he said, this is sort of the goddess's fierce grace. And it was a way for him to get closer to the divine, closer to the truth, through this suffering of his stroke. And in some ways, I feel like what's happening today and all the, all the craziness, it's a form of fierce grace. And so the goddess is a mother, nourishing, loving, compassionate, and she can also be fierce, and she can also be tough. There's times when she comes in the form of tough love. So that's one way to think of it. And she's also called the Devi, and Div, the word Div means light, and so an embodiment of light is Deva in the masculine form, and in the feminine form it's Devi. And this particular text, the Saundarya Lahari, is said to bring about both material, worldly well-being, which is bhoga, and also spiritual fulfillment for the yogi. So the chanting of the Saundarya Lahari and the worship of goddess Tripura Sundari is said to bring about both material and spiritual blessings. So, but you can see here in this picture, she's beautiful. She's got this lovely crown and the moon, and all the gods are sitting at her feet, right? Brahma, Vishnu, Indra, they're all hanging out by her feet. And she's sitting on a bench that has the form of Shiva. And so it sort of establishes the goddess as being the supreme deity in this work. It's not, even Brahma, who's the creator, and Vishnu, the sustainer, they are all bowing at her feet. So she's the supreme in this. She's worshipped as and praised as being the supreme mother in this work. And there's a verse that describes her physical form, and I'll chant that for you in a minute. Okay, this slide has a lot of text. You don't have to read this. It's just mostly for me to know what to talk about here. So don't worry about reading it. You can just listen to what I'm saying. So the Saundarya Lahari has 100 verses that's written in praise of this divine goddess, Tripura Sundari. And Saundarya means beauty, and Lahari means waves. But I love Nataraja Guru's description of Lahari. And this was, I actually saw it in Debbie's, Debbie might be here too as well today. And Debbie wrote a beautiful foreword to Guru Nitya's commentary on the Saundarya Lahari. And Scott wrote a beautiful introduction to Nataraja Guru's Saundarya Lahari, and they're both here today. So thank you both so much for for that amazing bit of writing. And I read both of those, and they're both brilliant. Anyway, so in Debbie's introduction, she quotes Nataraja Guru, and who is describing what Lahari is. He says it's an overwhelming subjective or objective experience of an item of intelligence or of beauty upsurging in the mind of man, right? So it's that sort of ecstatic sense of like, wow, wonder, beauty, like something that sort of takes your breath away, right? It's that, that's the implied meaning of the word Lahari. So Saundarya Lahari is, you could say, waves of beauty or billows of beauty. That's what the literal translation means. And it is composed in a meter. So this is a poetry, right? So the poetic meter that is used in this work is called Shikarini. And Shikarini has 17 syllables. So each line of the poem has 17 syllables. And it's chanted in two groups, a group of 6 syllables and a group of 11 syllables. And it's very appropriate that Shankara chose Shikarini, because Shikarini means the daughter of the mountain. It's the same meaning as Parvati, which is the goddess, right? So the goddess is the daughter of the mountain king. And so Shikarini, that's exactly what Shikarini means. And that's the poetic meter that he chose for this particular work. So it's really appropriate. So it goes a little bit like this, like I'll just chant, like, for example, the first verse, Shiva Shaktya Yukto Yadhi Bhavati Shakta Prabhavitum. So you see there's that first 6 syllables, and then there's the 11 syllables. Nache Devam Devo Na Khalu Kushala Spanditumapi Atastvam Aradhyam Harihara Virincha Dibirapi Pranantum Stotum Va Katham Akrita Punya Prabhavati. So you see there's a certain rhythm in that meter, in the poetry of that meter. And so that, just to give you a sense of what that is like. So that's one more thing about this work. The other thing is that although the entire work is called Saundarya Lahari, it is actually split into two sections, two distinct sections that have very distinct feeling. Like when I chant the Saundarya Lahari, it's almost like there's a phase shift between those two parts. When you chant the first 41 verses, it has a completely different feeling in the body, the mind, the heart, compared to the remaining 59 verses. So the first part is called Ananda Lahari, which is waves of bliss. Ananda is bliss. And then the second part of it is called the Saundarya Lahari, that is verses 42 to 100. So they're split into these two. Now the Ananda Lahari is very, very sort of coded, and it's in fact each verse of the Saundarya Lahari can be taken to be a mantra. So it has in it sounds that are sort of based in Tantra, Tantra Shastra, and so there are many secrets of Tantra, the chakra system, the Kundalini yoga system. All of that is embedded and spoken of in the Ananda Lahari in the first 41 verses. And the Saundarya Lahari, the last 59 verses, are a very beautiful poetic description of the physical form of the goddess, from the crown of her head to her eyes and her eyebrows and her breasts and the little hairs on her navel and her hips and her legs and her toes and her anklets. And I mean, it's like every verse is a description of the beauty of this goddess. And it's I mean, just for its poetry, it's a beautiful thing to read and chant. So that's so the second half is pretty much the description of the goddess. And each verse can be interpreted at many levels and layers. Like you can take it at the literal level, and then there's sort of the deeper symbolic level, then there's the tantric level, the mantra level. I mean, you can take each verse and split it apart in so many different ways to get the full implication. So this is a very, very vast and complex subject, and honestly, you know, I've been chanting this for the past 7 years and studying it and chanting it, and I can say I've literally just dipped my toes into it. Like, I have not, you know, it is really, I think you can spend many lifetimes trying to plumb the secrets of this beautiful composition. Like I said, it's a work that unifies many schools of practice and philosophy, like yoga, tantra, bhakti devotion, and Advaita's non-dualism. And Nataraja Guru brings out this point very well, which is that it is composed in what we call proto-language, which is the language of dreams, it's the language of myths, it's the language of poetry, it's the language of art. It's different from meta-language, which is sort of the, you know, the logical, linear language of words and ideas that we link, you know, logically and understand when we read a book, or, you know, that's the meta-language. But proto-language speaks to a more sort of a primal level within us. So when you listen to the sounds and meditate on the images of the verses, it sort of it resonates at a very at a deeper psychic level. So it's written in what Nataraja Guru calls proto-language, and it's designed entirely to bring one to our essential nature, to awaken us to our truth, and to bring us into oneness with Goddess Shakti and all of created manifestation, right? So it's to that's the purpose of this work, is to take the devotee from dualism to oneness. And there's a very beautiful story about this. There's a legend about the Saundarya Lahari, and it goes that Shankaracharya went to Kailasha, which is the abode of Shiva and Parvati. He went to go and visit them and worship them. And when he was leaving, Shiva, the Lord Shiva, gave him these 100 verses in praise of Shakti, and he gave it to Adi Shankaracharya as a gift. And so when Shankaracharya was coming back, Nandi, Nandi is the vehicle of Lord Shiva, and so he was jealous and he wanted this for himself. So he and Shankaracharya got into a tussle, and the book split in half, so into the first 41 verses and then the last 59 verses. So they got split in half, and Shankara was left with just the first 41, and Nandi took the other 59 verses. And so Shankara goes back to Lord Shiva and says, and complains to him and says, "Hey, look what, you know, Nandi took half of my book away." And so Shankara said, "Well, don't worry." He says, "You go back and you write the last 59 verses. You compose the verses in praise of Goddess Shakti." He says, "You take the first 41 and add." And in a sense, so I guess the implication is that the first 41 verses came directly from Shiva, and that the last part of it was something that Adi Shankaracharya composed on his own. And it, I mean, and this is of course just a story, but it sort of makes sense because there's a really distinct difference between those two parts of the Saundarya Lahari. Like they have qualitatively a very different feel when you chant those verses. Okay, so a little bit more. So this text can be approached in two different ways. And there are people who approach this text as a tantric text, as a tantra, and each verse is a tantra in itself, and each verse has a yantra associated with it and a mantra associated with it. And so what is tantra, yantra, mantra? It's all So a mantra is a sound syllables, right? That's used for meditating on something. Like, so for example, Om is a mantra, right? When you chant Om, it's a sort of like a very potent seed, like a bija, like a that has in it, that's packed with power, you could say, right? It has and it has a lot of meaning and depth, that particular sound. So as you meditate on Om, for example, the secrets of Om are revealed to the person who's meditating on it, right? So that is a mantra. A yantra is geometry. So there's these like mandalas and shapes and geometry that's associated, and there's a whole science behind how yantras are drawn, and they're very sort of very technical details about how all these different procedures, and it's all, so tantra is very ritualistic in a way. So there's a lot of how do you say it, like specifications for how you're supposed to meditate on these yantras and what offerings to give and all of that. So it's pretty complicated if you get into those aspects of the practice. And tantra is the technology, or the sort of the activating dynamics of that whole of that thing. So for example, each verse, so the yantra and the mantra activate the tantra, and the tantra then brings results or benefits, right? So so people who approach it from a tantric sense, I mean, sometimes they'll chant certain verses, like to have children. Like if a couple is having trouble conceiving a baby, they'll say, chant this verse of the Saundarya Lahari 1,000 times a day and make these offerings facing east and doing this and doing that. And if you follow that, then you will have a child. Or you can chant certain verses for prosperity and wealth and for health. And there's even verses that, if you're having a hard time finding a partner, there are verses that make you attractive to other people, so you can draw these people to you, and things like that. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, and I mean, so that's a whole different that's a whole different topic. But so you can approach it in that way, but you can also just approach it as a devotional poem, as bhakti, as devotion. And that's sort of the way in which I have been relating to this Saundarya Lahari, is as a devotional experience of chanting and praising the Divine Mother, who is everything, right? Who is your breath, who is your, this itch on your knee, who is the stars and the sun, and this little thought that's arising in your mind, and this little flicker of idea or creativity. It's all the Devi, it's all the goddess, right? So when you meditate on her in that way, that's a whole different relationship that you can cultivate with the deity. And Guru Nitya has a very beautiful paragraph which I found in one of his commentaries about bhakti. So he says the realization that one gains by resorting to bhakti has 5 aspects. They are sharanagati. Sharanagati means surrendering, or surrendering oneself to the divine. Stuti, praising the absolute or praising God. Dhyatru dheya parasparya, which is that cultivating that bipolarity between the devotee and the object of devotion, or you could say between man and God, right? And then prarthana, which is praying or making requests. And shanti is the peace, that the ultimate peace. And that shanti comes from the sort of the unification of the devotee and the object of devotion, and in this case, the goddess, right? So when you come to recognize that I am the goddess and the goddess is me, and that's that complete non-dual yoga, right? The unification. And in that we find the peace, right? So there's all these different aspects of bhakti: surrender, praise, this cultivating this bipolarity, this relationship, prarthana, praying, and shanti, the peace. And so when we look at these verses, you will see each of these elements in some of these verses. So that's just an introduction about the work, about Saundarya Lahari, about Adi Shankaracharya, and yeah. So, and then I just have a few verses that I want to illustrate and just talk a little bit about each one, and you'll get a sense and a flavor of this particular work. So this is the first verse, and I'll chant it. And so, as you can see, there's a yantra associated with this verse, and a mantra. There's Kleem is the mantra, and then this is the yantra for this particular verse. And so, so I just put that image over there. So this is how this verse goes. I'll try to chant it. My voice in the morning is it's not a very clear voice, so forgive me for my voice today. But I'll try to chant it. Shiva Shaktya Yukto Yadi Bhavati Shakta Prabhavitum Nache Devam Devo Na Khalu Kushalah Spanditumapi Atastva Maradhyam Harihara Virinchadibhirapi Pranantum Stotum Va Kathamakrita Punya Prabhavati. So that's the verse. And what it means is Shiva, and this translation is Nataraja Guru's translation, Shiva, united with Shakti, becomes able to manifest. If otherwise, this God knows not even how to pulsate. How then could one of ungained merit be able to bow to or even praise one such as you, adored even by Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma? So you can see right off the bat that this is the first verse. It's establishing the supremacy of the goddess in this verse, because it says you are adored by Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma. You're adored by the creator, the sustainer, and the destroyer. And how does one such as me, this ignorant me, get the good fortune of praising you, O Divine Mother? How did I get to be so lucky that I get to sing to you and that I get to praise you? And you who so the first part of it is saying that Shiva is the absolute in this context, is the absolute unmanifest Brahman, or the supreme consciousness is Shiva. It's the Tao that can't be spoken of, kind of a thing. It's like the pure awareness, right? That is infinite. So that is Shiva, but they're saying that Shiva can't even pulsate. Like there's no movement possible even without Shakti, right? So it is in the union of Shiva and Shakti that all manifestation happens. So saying Shiva cannot even pulsate, and it is only because of Shakti that we have all this, right? So and so how did this ignorant person who has no spiritual merits, how did I get to be so lucky to praise you, O Divine Mother, who is worshipped even by Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma? So here there is a sort of a humbling aspect of the devotee, right? Is saying that how did I get to be so lucky? It's like saying that, and that's that process of sort of sublimating and taming that sense of a separate self of the ego, right? So when you bow and when you surrender to the divine, that Sharanagati, right? It's that process of really sort of softening the ego by praising this Divine Mother, right? So you can see those aspects of surrender. You can see the aspects of praise in this particular verse. So this is the first verse. And then I wanted to, oops, sorry, here we go. And then this is another very beautiful verse. Let's see, we may not, I think we have some time. I'll just go through this, just like 2 or 3 verses I wanted to chant for you and describe to you. Okay, this is another beautiful verse, and this is a description of this goddess. So I'll just chant it. Kwanat kanchi dama Karikalabha kumbha stananatha Parikshina madhye Parinata sharaschandra vadana Dhanurbanan pasham Shrinimapi dadhana karatalai Purastadastam naha Puramati Turaho Purushika. So that's the verse. And here's the description. Resounding with waist belt of jingle bells, recumbent by breasts like the frontal lobes or frontal bulges of a calf elephant, slim of waist, with autumnal full moon mature face, by hands holding aloft bow with arrow, noose and goad. Oh, let her appear before us, that proud counterpart of the city burner. So this is invoking the goddess and saying, come, appear before us. So it's like it's calling out to her. And she is the counterpart of the city burner. The city burner is Shiva, Tripurantaka. And so he's the burner of the 3 cities or the 3 worlds, the destroyer, and she is the beautifier of the 3 worlds, right? So they are the counterparts. So Shiva and Shakti. So and so here's a description of. So she's described as having a very thin waist with sort of a what do you call? What do you call those things? The things that a waist belt, a waist belt that has jingling bells on them, right? So she's wearing a waist belt with bells, and she has these breasts, and her body is bent over from the weight of her breasts, and her breasts are compared to the forehead, the bulge of an elephant calf, a calf elephant. And so her breasts are compared to the frontal bulges of the elephant's forehead. And in her hands, she's holding four things in her hands. She has the bow, which is made out of sugarcane. And then there's the arrow. She has 5 arrows that she's holding in one hand. And then she has the noose and the goad. Actually, you know what? Let me go back to the other picture and you'll see. Where is it? Here, this one right here. So you see here, so she's got, this is her bow, and these are her arrows, the 5 arrows, and this is the noose and the goad, right? The goad is to prod, right? And they all have different meanings. The bow is symbolic of the mind, so she helps you overcome a wavering mind. The arrows are the 5 sense organs, the 5 arrows. And so they're symbolic of restraining. She helps you kind of restrain your sense organs, so you're not a slave to your senses anymore. The noose is symbolic of sort of, she gets you untangled basically. So she helps you overcome attachment. So that is the symbolism of the noose, and the goad is to overcome the negative. All the negative propensities of the mind, right? So she prods you and says, hey, so she might, give you certain challenges and difficulties in the form of fierce grace, to help you overcome things that you need to, so that you can come to that union with her, right? So that is the verse, and that's the description. But this can be interpreted in so many different ways, and you can see the contrasts in this, right? Like you see, like she's described as having this very slim and delicate waist, and these jingling bells. The jingling bells are, Guru Nitya says, it's like creation. It's the sound, right? Sound is the first like when Keith was chanting Om, the Nada Brahma, the cosmic sound, right? And so sound is symbolic of creation. And so her jingling bells are like, all the different worlds that she creates. Each world comes into being and disappears. And it's like the sound of these bells, coming and going, like, as she walks, it's like, the jingling of her waist bells, right? So that's one image of this delicate waist and the waist belt. And then you've got this really sort of strong image of the frontal, the forehead of the elephant that can be, very strong and forceful. So that's, again, the vitality of creation, right? The strength of her power, of her being is described in, by her breasts, which is also a symbol of nourishment. As the mother, the breasts are also symbolic of her being the nourisher, right? She nourishes us. So there's different ways in which we can interpret this verse. So this is another one. And then this verse is all about this ninth verse is all about the chakra system. And I'll just very briefly, I'll chant it, and then I'll just show you a diagram here. Mahimuladhare kamapi manipure hutavaham Sthitam swadhisthane hridi marudamakashamupari manopi bhrumadhye sakalamapi bhitva kulapatham sahasrare padme saharahasi patya viharase. So here it says the earth placed in the Muladhara, water in the Manipura, fire in the Swadhisthana, air in the heart, that is Anahata, space in the Vishuddhi, which is the throat, and amid the eyebrows, placing the mind, and breaking through the whole Kula path, you do sport with your Lord secretly in the 1,000-petal lotus. So this is, and this is basically a description of the chakras, right? So the Kundalini. So the Kundalini is like the serpent that lies in the base of the spine, coiled in 3.5 coils. And then you've got the Muladhara, which is the base chakra, then the sacral chakra, the genitals, Swadhisthana, Manipura, the navel, Anahata is the heart, Vishuddhi is the throat, and Agnya is the eyebrow, between the eyebrows. And the Sahasrara is in the crown of the head, the 1,000-petal lotus. And so this is showing the path of the Kundalini rising through the Sushumna channel, the middle channel. So here in this verse, she's the Kundalini, right? She's the Shakti, Kundalini Shakti, the goddess. And she rises through the chakras to the crown where she sports with her Lord, right? Which is where the union of Shiva and Shakti is at the crown, at the Sahasrara. And she sports in secret. There's a word in this verse. It says secretly, because that cannot be spoken of, right? That union is wordless. We cannot. There's silence, and there's complete emptiness and fullness in that union. Cannot be spoken of. So that is the secret, right, of the union at the crown chakra. So you see how this verse has all these. The tantric elements, the yogic elements are all embedded in these verses. And I have to do this one. This is actually not this one. Okay, this is about the yantra. This is about the Sri Chakra. So this is the main yantra for this particular work, which is described in that verse 11. And it's a very, very complex piece of geometry. It has very specific proportions. I don't know if I have time to go into all this, but the description of this.
Please do.
Okay, all right. So this is it's a deeply mystical symbol. And there are ways to meditate on this yantra. And it is the yantra, the entire Saundarya Lahari, the yantra for this particular work is the Shri yantra. And in 3 dimensions, so if you imagine there's a dot at the center, and if you pull, if you imagine just sort of pulling the Sri chakra and sort of making it into a 3-dimensional form, you have the Meru yantra, which is what is depicted here. And if you see here in the Meru, in the 7, it has 7 layers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the dot. So that's again sort of the 7 chakras, right? So it's symbolic of many things, but it basically has these 16 outer petals, there's the 8 inner petals, and then there are these interlocking triangles. There's 4 upward facing triangles, which represent the Shiva tattvas, the aspects of Shiva. And there are 5 downward facing triangles, which are the Shakti tattvas, the Shakti aspects. And when you interlock these triangles, you get 44, or actually 43, different triangles, and each of these can be meditated upon. And the 44th one is the dot at the center. And the dot at the center is that sort of dimensionless point where the union of Shiva and Shakti, right? It's the beginning of, and when that dot pulsates, it gets horizontalized as the entire world. And so this is a representation of both the microcosm as you, as the individual, and the macrocosm. It's everything. This yantra is basically, it encompasses everything, and it can be meditated upon. And then it's enclosed by three circles, and then there are these 3 lines, and you can see these are like kind of the doors, the entryways into this yantra. So there are all kinds of complex rituals and things and meditations you can do on the Sri yantra. And it's very, very, very mysterious, very profound symbol. It's probably one of the most complex yantras that are out there. So the verse 11 is basically describing the Sri chakra. That's what this verse is. But my favorite is this one, which is 22. And the yantra for verse 22 is the Sri chakra, actually. That happens to be the yantra for that verse as well. Okay, so I'd like to chant this verse. It says, Bhavani tvam dase mai vitara drishtim sakaruna iti stotum vanchan kathayati bhavani tvamiti yaha tvadaiva tvam tasmai dishasi nija sayujya padavi mukunda brahmendra sputamakuta nirajita padam. So this is this verse has all the 5 elements that Guru Nitya spoke about for bhakti, right? And I'll show you this in a minute. So the literal translation is, O Bhavani, that is, O goddess, you, on this your servant, your slave, Dasi, bestow a compassionate glance. And thus, intending to adore, and no sooner one begins saying, O Bhavani, you instantaneously grant him or her that state of identity with you. The same as what Vishnu, Brahma, and Indra accomplished by waving the bright lights on their diadems, their crowns. So this is saying, basically saying, so somebody who wants to worship you, and you say, even before you can say, O Bhavani, you, Bhavani Tvam, right? O goddess, you. Even before you can say that, she instantly can grant you union with her by just a compassionate glance. Like she can just give you this little sideways glance, and that's enough to wake you up and bring you into merger, into union with her, right? So and she's saying, so you can see here, there's this aspect of praise, because she's saying that, and it says, Vishnu, Brahma, and Indra, they accomplished this, meaning they got union with you by waving the lights on their crown, right? So you can imagine that they're all sitting down by her feet, and their crowns are glittering with light, right? The shining lights. And just by their movements of their heads, they're kind of doing nirajana. Nirajana is like the fire waving ceremony, like when you propitiate a deity, you light a fire and you kind of do circulate the fire like this. It's like, that's called nirajana. It's like fire waving ceremony. So the gods, the Vishnu and Brahma, they're sitting at her feet, and their diadem, because of the light shining from their crowns on her feet, they got the blessing of her compassionate glance, and they were unified with her, right? So it's such a beautiful poetic image of surrender, of devotion, of praise, of prayer, right? It's saying, grant me this glance, right? You're praying to the goddess to say, please give me your compassionate glance so that I can become one with you, right? And actually, he's playing on the words. When you say Bhavani Tvam, it also has the meaning as may I be you. So it's playing, Bhavani also means goddess, but when you say Bhavani Tvam, it also means may I be you. So it's like, it's a play on words that Shankara has adopted here to bring about this. It's such a beautiful verse. So you can see all aspects here. There's the praise, there's the surrender, and there is this bipolarity. That's like you and the mother are developing this relationship, right? And you can chat with her, you can ask her, you can scold her, you can love her. You have this. So the devotee develops a really intimate relationship with the goddess in the process of this praising, and then eventually you come to the peace of union. And the final verse, the 100th verse, I'll just chant that and we'll end here. Another very, very beautiful verse that sort of ties everything together so beautifully. Pradipa jwalabhe Pradipa jwalabhe Divasakara nirajana vidhi Sudha sutes chandro Palajalala rachana Swakiyairamphobhihi Salila nidhi sauhitya karanam Tvadiyabhirvagbhis Tava janani vacham stutiriyam. So it says, to carry out ritual propitiation of the sun by waving of lighted flames, to offer oblations to the moon, the source of nectar, by particles of moonstone water, to appease the deep with offerings of water its own, such, O Mother, is this wordy praise with words your own. So Shankara is saying, if you were to wave the fire to the sun, it's just like you're returning the fire back to the sun. And if you take the moonstone, like apparently when you put moonstone out by the moonlight, the water that forms on the moonstone is offered to the moon. So it's just basically returning back what is already the moon's. And then it's like offering water to the ocean. It's just returning to what is already the ocean. And just like that, this work, these 100 verses of praise, is just your own words that I am returning to you. I'm offering to you, Devi, this is yours. Meaning to say that everything that I am doing, every word I'm speaking is you, it's yours. And so you have this complete disillusion of any separation between you and everything that is. So that's the final verse. And so I'll stop here and open it up for questions.
That was absolutely amazing. I so enjoyed it, and I truly enjoyed your chanting. That was terrific. Have you recorded the whole chant? Have you done all of it? Is it available? for us to just meditate on and listen to?
Yeah, so actually, I learned how to chant these in different ragas. So I didn't do it that way today, but there are 10 different ragas and 10 verses chanted in each raga. So I have recordings of that which I've chanted with my friend. So my friend and I, we chant together every Friday. We do all the 100 verses, and I have a recording of that, and I can share it with you. Yeah.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yeah, I am sure many of us would just love just meditating on that beautiful, beautiful
Thank
passage.
you.
It is uplifting. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so
And
much. Yeah.
yes, that is terrific. So we do have questions for you, but I guess we do have some questions from the audience. So why don't we go ahead and get to those? I think we have our first question here. So let's get Gyro here.
Hi, Jairo. Good morning.
Hi, Gayatri. That was
Yeah.
beautiful chanting.
Thank you.
Yes, I too would like a CD or an
Oh,
MP3 of that chanting. It doesn't have to be in with music. It can be just like that. Sounded good. Thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you.
And we have Elisa.
Hi,
Hello,
Lisa.
hello, Gayatri, and thank you.
Thank you.
Beyond words, this was an absolutely extraordinary experience and further proof of all I don't know and want to know so much more about. I have a couple questions and a couple of comments. Um, First of all, I'm a poet, and so I want to so desperately know more about this poem. Is there a particular translation that is better than others? Who did the translation on the pieces that you shared?
This is by Nataraja Guru, who's my guru's guru. I took his translation for the slides
Okay,
today. Yeah. So
so
he has a full commentary on this with
okay.
translation. And there might be others that you could also find online, which are pretty good. But I definitely, I mean, if you, I haven't had the courage to go deep into Nataraja Guru's commentary because it's difficult, and but his translations you can, yeah, I recommend it. Recommend his book for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you
And my
spell that and put it in chat for us, please?
Not the Nataraja Guru. Okay, I'll put his name. Yeah, I'll just put.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
I'll
you.
just do that. Hold
I
on.
can do it for you, Gayatri.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I am. Is there a way to chat? Oh yeah, meeting group chat. Here we go. Nataraja Guru. Yeah, it's his commentary on the Saundarya Lahari.
Okay. Thank you. Just two more questions. You mentioned the two different there are two different languages, the Meta and
Proto
right,
language.
right. Would that be likened just in English to like academic language versus like poetic language?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. So
Yes.
it's not like a dialectically different or anything
No.
like that.
It's
All
just like how, like it speaks to a different part of you,
right.
which is at a wordless level, right?
Yes.
And it's that's the proto language. Yeah.
Understood. Thank
Yeah.
you. And then the third, and please forgive me if I'm being too forward or overstepping any bounds. Nancy Yielding,
Yes.
you mentioned Nancy, and I know that she's in this meeting. And I'm wondering if this is the same Nancy Yielding who was friends with Helen Nearing and Ellen LeConte.
I'll let Nancy answer that one because I don't know. That Nancy? She's on mute.
I'm unmuting. Hello,
Hi.
and no, I wasn't personal friends with those two, but Helen Nearing is someone who I read way back when, and appreciate her perspective, but not a personal friend.
Or part of that whole community up there in Maine?
No.
No. Okay, thank you. Because the Ellen LeConte's book on Light Alone, the Guru Meditation on the Good Death of Helen Nearing, is extraordinary. And so I thought you were the same, Nancy. Thank you. And so sorry. So sorry. Thank you. And Gayatri, just deepest, soul-felt, heartfelt thanks.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you.
And Jairo, we'll come back to you in just a minute. We got a couple of people ahead of you here, so let's go ahead and do that. We'll get Annie here.
Hi, Annie. She's a dear friend. Hello. Yes.
It's early morning for me, so pardon my lack of energy, I should say. But anyway, I just wanted to answer to Elisa's question. There is this beautiful book.
Yes, this is Guru Nitya's.
This is Guru Nitya's book.
Yes.
It's the translation of the first 41 verses, I think.
Yes. That.
Thank you.
That's another one. And the only thing with that is, and it's a very, very beautiful compilation of his commentary on the first 41 verses and also meditations on the first 41 or 53 verses, I think. But he didn't do the remaining translation, so it only has the first 41 in that book. Yeah.
And I also wanted to add one more thing. I have been a student of Gayatri's teachings for a very long time. I think about 10 years now. And the yantra is actually a very significant part of my life. And so the comment that was made in the chat about the mother goddess, the Mary, tying it to Mary with the Christ, the very middle downward triangle with the dot, to me, I interpret it as the mother being the downward triangle, the dot being the child. And so whenever I see this yantra, it really brings to me this idea of the divine energy that is protective, but not oppressive, which is what I think a lot of us, whether it's male or female, have this energy to be that kind of person. So anyway, I just thought I would add that.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Annie. Let's bring Jairo back.
Yes, I have. It looks like another version of that same book that was displayed.
Yes.
Is this a newer edition?
So the one that Annie held up is a newer edition of this one.
Oh, okay.
But the one that Annie has also includes meditations that Guru Nitya wrote, of the first 41 verses. So what you're holding is just the commentary, but he had also written some beautiful meditations on each verse. So the book that Annie has both of those, and that's the only difference. Yeah, but it's the same commentary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott Paper, for sending me this and others.
Yeah, Scott said that.
So here's the questions that we have for you, and I'll just go through them. It's what we ask all of our mystics, and we start with, of course, tell us about your spiritual path. And you shared with us where you've been and what's been going on in your world. So thank you for that. The next question then is, how and when do you experience the divine? And that ties in with our next question is, what do you experience when you do that?
So So in fact, I'll speak about it in the context of this particular practice that I do with Saundarya Lahari. So it's interesting. Guru Nitya gave me that book that Jairo held up on the screen. He gave me that, and he signed that in 1997, and it was lying in my bookshelf for 20 years, and I never opened it. And then, as they say, certain causes and conditions arose, and Jyoti, who is not here today, but she wanted to be. She sends you her love, by the way, Keith. But so she happened to be here, and she initiated me into this Saundarya Lahari. And I guess it's the conditions were ripe at that time in 2017 when I started. And I just started to just memorize the verses and chant them, and I did some of the meditations on the Sri Chakra a little bit. But really what I feel and what has grown in my practice of chanting this is what I would call a sense of inner vastness, or a kind of a expansive sense of being, and also a sort of just a sense of wonder, mystery, beauty, like, being able to I appreciate beauty in ways that I hadn't before. A growing, and I think what it's really given me is a growing trust in life itself, and a feeling of perfection that is inherent in everything, in all of creation, in all its forms, in its beautiful forms and its ugly forms, that there is this sort of innate beauty and perfection in everything, which I see as the Divine Mother. And so that's kind of the way I've been experiencing this particular practice. And also more of a harmony between my inner world and my outer worlds. Like, it's kind of like, odd synchronistic things that happen, and like everything feels like I'm in the right place, and there's a sort of a flow, a harmony, a feeling of being more myself. So those are the kinds of things that I've gained, I would say, from this practice. And in terms of mystical experiences, I mean, I've had a few of those, but those are also hard to talk about, so I won't really speak about them. But yeah, that's sort of what I want to say about what this work has given me.
We have a few more, but I just want to comment on what you just said. A lot of our mystics said the same thing, that you go into that state of divine connection and you're without words. It becomes what we call ephemeral. It's a felt sense that is, we've all tried as mystics to describe it. There's endless books written on that experience of divine connection. And it's kind of like you have to be there to understand it.
Yeah, and there's a sort of like at the end of chanting the Saundarya Lahari, what you experience, at least what I experienced, is a kind of a silence that is like a pregnant silence or something, like a dynamic kind of like a deep, like that, I don't know. And it's just so beautiful, and like you just want to stay there forever, which of course you can't, because then the mind kicks in and everything else happens. And it's fine, and that's the beautiful thing, is like everything that arises is also to be seen as her. So there's nothing to be rejected, everything is beautiful in that way.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Absolutely. So then our next question is what challenges have you had on your mystical path?
So I think, let's see, I think what I've experienced in terms of challenges is like I said, when I feel like Guru is guiding me all the time, and taking me to different teachers and teachings and so on, and sometimes like I've kind of strayed, like where I feel like I landed with something which didn't feel quite right, and then sort of coming back to, so I guess my challenge has been sort of learning to listen more deeply and trust more deeply that inner guiding principle. And so this feeling of like, oh my God, I wish Guru Nitya was here so I could actually ask him this question. It's like, and that's like, and he's not here in the body, right? Like it's this constant feeling of like, oh, I wish he was here. But then when I actually quiet down and listen deeply, I get the answers I need. But sometimes I haven't been good at listening, I guess, and then I kind of stray and find, land in something which I don't really care about, I don't really like, and then I have to come back and reset. So this kind of like a feeling of like a self-guiding myself on this path, and also listening to that the inner self as well. So I think that's been a little bit of a challenge for me.
I think you stated a very common experience for all of us on the path. Yeah. So what do you love about your path?
What's not to love?
Good answer.
I don't know. It's just like, I can't imagine my life without it, and yeah, it's just, I find it to be such a great blessing to have been born into the family that I was born into, to have had the good fortune of having Guru Nitya in my life, and all these beautiful people who have blessed my life. Some of them are here, and it's just been a wonderful, just been just a blessing in every way. Yeah.
Fantastic. So tell us about your spiritual practice. Like, what do you do on a daily basis, a weekly, monthly, that type of thing? What is your spiritual practice?
So it's a combination of this chanting of Saundarya Lahari. I mean, right now, and it changes. Like, so I sometimes stick with certain practices for like periods of time, and then at some point I get called to doing something else, and then so it hasn't been the same all through. It keeps changing. But right now it's some of this chanting of Saundarya Lahari, but I also do some japa, like some mantra, like with the beads. I do some of that. And then mindfulness meditation and practice, and I go on retreats like the Buddhist, Vipassana retreats, silent retreats. I do that a couple of times a year, so that helps me sort of deepen and quiet down. So I do that. But mostly I would say what I'm trying to do as practice is, I don't know, getting better at loving people and being more compassionate and more loving, I guess, like that. And that's an ongoing practice. And also my teaching practice, which I also consider to be a practice. I'm teaching groups. So that's also part of my practice, I would say.
I love all of that, and especially the challenge of loving everyone no matter what. That is an ongoing practice that we all should do more of. Yes, absolutely. So if someone was very interested in joining you on this particular path, how might they do it?
So they can definitely, reach out to me. Please send me an email. And depending on your particular interest, like if you're interested in Advaita or yoga, then they can join me in the Friday or Saturday classes. But if you're, more interested in sort of cultivating a daily meditation practice, I have a morning meditation group that meets from 8 to 8:30 every morning on Zoom, and I do a short
That's specific time.
8 to 8:30 every Monday through Friday, and I do it in 3-week cycles. I do 3 weeks on and 1 week off, 3 weeks on, 1 week off. But it's a whole community of people who we meet on Zoom every morning from 8 to 8:30, and I just offer a short teaching for about 8 to 10 minutes, and then a 20-minute guided meditation. So it's just a way to start the day and on the right foot. So, and it's a very beautiful community of people. So you can join me in those morning meditations. And then if you're more interested in Eastern philosophy, then I have 2 groups that meet, one on Friday and one on Saturday. So, I mean, I guess the best way is for them to just email me, and based on their interest, I can help them figure out what would be the best way.
And I've put your website link in chat. So
Thank
at
you.
mindtree.com.
Thank you,
And
Bud.
they can get a hold of you there as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, they can
Okay.
email me. Yeah.
Terrific.
Definitely.
That's terrific. Yes, wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gayathri. This has been an amazing experience for all of us. And the presentation that you gave us and how you shared it, we can just tell it's from your heart. And we appreciate that very, very, very much. Thank you. Anything that you would like to add, Gayathri? We have more time if there's some aspect that you would like to share.
Now they can
Yeah,
hear us.
actually, I have a beautiful poem here which I want to share, and it was it's actually related to one of the verses, where which I shared with you, where they say that Shakti is the eye maker, the one who creates the aham, the I, the I sense. So the I sense of Shiva, or the I sense of the absolute, is Shakti, is the goddess, right? And so there's this beautiful poem I found by Rabindranath Tagore. It's called I, and I'll just read it. It says, "The color of my consciousness made the emerald green and the ruby red. I gazed at the sky, and the light dazzled in the east and the west. I turned to the rose and exclaimed, 'It's beautiful,' and beautiful it became. You say it's philosophy, not a poetic composition. I say it's truth, and that makes it poetry. This is my proud claim, pride on behalf of the whole of humanity, that not only the canvas of the human ego, that only on the canvas of the human ego is drawn the artistic masterpiece of the universe. The philosophers are negating existence in every breath, muttering, no, 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 not emerald, not ruby, not light, not rose, nor I, nor you. Meanwhile, the limitless one is exploring itself within the limits of humanity, and that's called I."
Wow. That's powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, I
That's
thought
very, very inclusive of both duality and non-duality, all in one.
all in one. That's right. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
That kind of speaks almost directly to the other things I shared today.
It does. It does.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, Michael, you have a question I think that probably some of our panelists could answer in addition to Gayathri. So let me just ask this then. Gayathri, are you familiar with A Course in Miracles?
I've heard about it, but don't know really too much about it, I have to say.
No, that's totally fine. We understand that. Now, Michael has a question in chat. I'd like my ACIM practice to be more devotional. Any ideas? And interestingly, Michael, that is part of the Seeker's Compass, is to share all these different paths and find different ways of creating our own connection to the divine. And they all inform us. Each of these different practices, different approaches, different thinkings give us an impetus to say, how can I become more connected to the divine? The question that we ask, that I think that everyone should ponder, is it isn't in the moments in which we connect that are significant, not that they aren't important, but it's all the times that we don't. When we go through our day and we are wrapped up in all of the noise, all the maya, all the confusion, all the sounds and distractions of the world, what can we do to bring our awareness back to the present moment and reconnect to the divine? That becomes an ongoing daily practice. And if you would like to consider that to be a devotional, that all by itself is. How do I do that more? How do I bring more of my connection to the divine into my day. And it doesn't require anything special, but it can be. It can be. That's what a lot. If you look at the various belief systems, like you mentioned, Gayathri, the beads, right? You've got beads that you use. So the rosary, and there's a number of different beads in Buddhism traditions as well. And it's designed to bring us into the present moment. That's the purpose of it, is to be here now, and to be here now, and to be here now. And it becomes this interesting process of asking ourselves, am I fully here now? Am I fully here now? And I do believe that Keith has something that he would like to add. Dr. Keith?
Hi, everybody, again. So thank you, Gayathri. It really was beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm so glad I did this. Thank you.
Yes, no, it's really, yes. So, many connections that brought us together over the last decade, and Scott and Nancy certainly are two people that, helped me meet Gayathri and also her good friend who couldn't make it today. But practice. To go back to the ACIM question, at least, I see Christianity in general as a very devotional practice. Although the idea of the Trinity wasn't necessarily brought up today. I mean, that idea of Shiva and Shakti is not unlike kind of the Son and Holy Ghost, with the Father being kind of the field behind. And any kind of, I hate to use the word ritual, but any kind of like pattern that you use for your practice can be infused with a devotional component. And the breath, the breath is that, feminine component in Christianity, the holy breath, and kind of connects all that. And the breath just allows us to get so still. And we're playing with the in-breath, the out-breath, the inhalation, the exhalation, the Shiva Shakti, until we get to that, point of stillness. And trying to just, embody the sacred in everything that we do. Right, so just sitting down to read A Course in Miracles. How do you prepare? Where are you sitting? Are you sitting the same time every day in the same place? Can you add some associations with it so it helps put you in that space, that you want to be in easier? Just like you go to sleep at a certain time, and wake up at a certain time every day, your body gets used to it, so it will get used to getting in that deep reflective state as well. So practice. Whatever your practice is, whatever it is, just, you have to love your practice. And if you're not loving your practice, why? What about, how can you find the love in your practice? How can it become just the most beautiful, nourishing thing that you do? So that's the and there's so many goodness gracious. So, the divine feminine gives us all these things to choose in this, beautiful nature that we're living in. And to go back to something I said at the beginning, both yoga and tantra teach that it is, through the mother that you can find the father, through nature you can find spirit. And that's what all this is about. So waking up, looking at the sky, making a friend with a tree in your backyard and talking to that tree every morning, whatever your practice is. Certainly the beautiful chants that Gayathri did, but whatever it is you do, bringing that, honoring it, and bringing that sacred and love. I mean, devotion is bhakti. It's just what Gayathri talked about before, and it's bringing that love. And how can you learn to generate that compassion in yourself? And there's very many ways. I tend to be a little more partial with breath, but anything. And then how can how can you help that go? So as we work on the vertical, like we did in the initial meditation, that then allows you to center in the heart. In a short meditation, we can't do everything, but that heart, that compassion center, that which is the center of more of kind of the spiritual evolutionary focus chakras, which are above, and the survival chakras, which are below. And the symbol of that is the six-pointed star, and then the Sri chakra is kind of an expansion of that. But that is here, and it's the Hebrews have it here, and the Hindus have it here. I mean, it's so compassion, 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 filling up and being able to then expand horizontally, and so connect vertically with nature and spirit, and then expand that horizontally to the world that we're to the more transactional world. So taking the transcendence and allowing that to kind of blossom, and just being in love with that, and bringing that devotion to your practice in A Course in Miracles or whatever it is. Yeah.
Thank you, Keith. That was wonderful. Appreciate that so much.
So how might one go about memorizing the 100? Well, in this book I have the 42 or so.
Yeah.
Could Gayatri add another thing to her plate? Add another class that's based on this, and where we go through the verses.
Oh, I
That
think
would be too much. I got too much.
yeah, that might be hard. But there are online resources that teach the chanting of the Saundarya Lahari. I'll point you to one of them, and you could maybe listen. Because the thing is, the Sanskrit words also are kind of it's not easy to pronounce for non Indian tongues, right? It's a little bit, but since you want to learn it, I think you should. And I'll send you some links that you could. There's a guy who teaches the chanting of the Saundarya Lahari, so with the precise pronunciations and so on. So I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. That's terrific. And before we wrap it up, though, I want to invite John Mundy, Dr. Mundy, to come forward and share any insights that he has, or any questions or comments. John, over to you.
I don't think I have any questions or comments. I have a thought that I keep working on. I'm sure we all do too. Is that we're talking about a non-dualist philosophy here. At the same time, we're playing with this energy of Shiva, Shakti, positive, negative, liberal, conservative. You can keep going on and on and on as this kind of energy, but it winds up as one. That's not a question. That's the, it is a question, but it's not a question that I expect anybody to really be able to answer. It's just, how do we make the two into the one? If you see what I'm saying, you don't have a baby if you don't have two. You need a man and woman. It's just a thought.
Yeah. No, in fact, Nataraja Guru's commentary very much speaks to exactly this. Is like, how do you dialectically resolve duality and come to the unifying principle, the unitive factor that he calls. So his commentary goes very beautifully into that idea, and every verse he looks at structurally in that way, in terms of dialectics.
Right.
And so it's very beautiful commentary. I highly recommend it. I mean, I myself haven't really. I'm recommending it, but knowing that it's been many people who've read it say it's one of the best. But I myself have only.
Say again, maybe put it in chat.
Yeah, it's Nataraja Guru's commentary on the Saundarya Lahari. He looks at this whole thing in exactly. I'll send a link to this book. I'll send this to Bud and Keith, and hopefully he'll forward it to everybody. Oops, I spelled commentary wrong, but okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you,
Thank
John.
you.
Appreciate that.
Sure,
Thank
sure.
you. And thank you, Gayathri. We appreciate
you
your
so much.
time.
Thank you so
And we
much. Thanks for
appreciate
having me. I
that you
appreciate it.
joined us. We learned so much today and appreciate everything that you've done in your studies and where you've been. So
Thank you. I really
you.
appreciate it. Oh,
Thank you.
take care, everybody. Bye.
And I would just like to say next month on the Seeker's Compass, we will, for those of you who are interested in the Kabbalah, we will have Rabbi Eyal Reis, who is the director of the Savat Kabbalah Center in Israel. He'll be joining us and we'll be doing an interesting dive into the Kabbalah. And I'm looking forward to this one as well. We have so many wonderful mystics who have joined us on this path. And we appreciate all of you who have shared your time and energy with us today. Blessings to all of you. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.